This afternoon, presenting the annual report of the World Manufacturing Foundation, which is about manufacturing in the age of artificial intelligence. We'll discuss in two separate panels, so people and policy, and again, productivity and preparedness to the future. But let me start introducing Professor Marco Taisch, who's scientific chairman of the World Manufacturing Foundation. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Well, I think it's your turn now to
present
present and introduce the report.
Thank you so much. As you know, since 2018, we have been working on producing content for the future of manufacturing. This year, we are going to focus on artificial intelligence, but let me share with you first the history of our report. We started in 2018 with a global perspective and a global view of the role of manufacturing in the future, and we will come up with 10 key recommendations. And then we went to 2019, last year, where we have decided to focus on skills. Skills are important. It's not only a technological transformation, what we are living today, the fourth industrial revolution, but it's also a social and competences revolution. And this was exactly the focus of 2019. And then 2020, this year, artificial intelligence is coming as a incredible innovation here. We need to understand what is going to be the role of AI. We need to understand what is going to be the impact of manufacturing. So why we have decided this year to talk about artificial intelligence in manufacturing? First, it's not just a technology. Artificial intelligence is more than just a technology. It's part of our daily life. We are fully immersed in an environment where artificial intelligence is playing with us, is working with us. It's in our mobile phones, it's in our daily life, and we need to understand what is going to be the role. Second, since manufacturing is, and you know that because we have been discussing this since the beginning of the World Manufacturing Forum, is an incredible actor and enabler of societal well-being, we need to understand how any technology is going to impact manufacturing. Any technology is going to be an enabler of the well-being because through manufacturing we can create social impact on our society. And third, we need to focus on the technology. We need to really understand the potential of artificial intelligence. We need to understand the implication on our organizations, on companies, on society and market. And this is the reason why this year we have decided to focus on this topic. But before getting to the 10 recommendations, you know that is something that is a common activity throughout the series of our report. Let me share with you some information because which, let me say, have pushed us to decide to work on AI and manufacturing. And first, AI is relevant. You see the expected spending by industry in 2021, next year. Manufacturing is at the second position. So banking and finance is the first, but manufacturing will become the most important application of AI. And you see here from this forecast about spending, and that's something we need to consider. Companies are going to invest and invest more, and we need to suggest them how to invest. Second reason why AI in manufacturing is relevant is linked to the role of competences and skills. You see here the number of jobs in terms of percentage that will be affected or impacted or will require skills and competences in artificial intelligence. There are 3 countries mentioned here, but we can definitely assess that this is a trend which is also applying to Asia, is applying to Europe, is applied to other continents all over the world, and you see that there's a huge increase of needs of competences in the world of AI. Third, why companies are investing in AI? What do they expect from this? Of course, they expect an increase of their competitive advantage. This is the first reason why companies are investing in AI. But also, if you see the other reasons why they are investing, you see that they are linked to the fact that they think that this is something which will increase their competitiveness, is something that will increase their relationship with the customer. Customer, consumer will require more AI in product, in smart product, in smart services, and therefore companies need to jump onto this opportunity. But also they are doing it because they think that their competitors will do. So it's a kind of race to become the first in adopting AI in the area of manufacturing. Why is also increasing their competitive advantages? You see here where companies think they should invest in AI. Is because they think that smart production, and we are going to address this in the report. There is a chapter dedicated to this, and during the panel with my colleagues, we are going to discuss more in detail this aspect. Artificial intelligence is expected to create a leap forward to the increase of efficiency in production. This is the main reason. Of course, there are other reasons like smart services, smart products, but smart production is considered the first aspect in this, the reason for having competitive advantage. What are the barriers? There are many barriers. Companies are asking themselves what they have to do in order to adapt artificial intelligence. There are many barriers, and you see them listed here. But if you go through the list, what you see is, first is the comprehension of the technology. Artificial intelligence benefits are not fully deployed, are not fully understood by managers, by people in the company, by workers. And the second reason is not something which is related with the technology. It's something which is related with the skills. Skills is coming back. Last year, we have been focusing our report on skills, and this topic is coming back this year as well. Where we think artificial intelligence can bring the highest level of benefit? At three levels. The first level is at machine tool level, down to the shop floor, down to the equipments. The second is at factory shop floor level, can be useful to coordinate machines, can be useful to improve the efficiency and the productivity of our factories. But then factories are connected with other factories. It's digital supply networks are the future, and you know how this is important. During the pandemic, we have seen how supply chain were facing disruption due to the fact that some parts in the world were closed, were shut down, and the topic that we are discussing today is how to create a resilient supply chain. Artificial intelligence can help in this direction. So three levels: digital supply network, factory level, and machine to level. And of course, the application and the benefit is different. It goes from resiliency, this is important for supply network, agility, and risk, but also in flexibility, but down to adaptability and flexibility, which is the most important at machine level. And then skills. It's not only a matter of skills related with the technology. We need to have and match AI skill with core manufacturing skills. It's two sides of the same coin. We cannot work with this technology without having in mind the application and the potential that this technology will bring to our factory. And then we need to develop trust. Trust is also a very important topic. Ethics is an important topic. We have two key recommendations exactly addressing these two areas. So skills at 360 degrees is very important. And then ethics. There are a long-lasting discussion about ethics in artificial intelligence, ethics and technologies like artificial intelligence. We think that transparency is the best, as in the most important way to create trust among the people, among the user, among the society. But artificial intelligence, you know, is based on data. And then data privacy, data protection is therefore very relevant. It's a topic that has been discussed since data become, let me say, the fourth pillar of a company. Data is considered the oil of the future, and that is increasing the value. And for this reason, we need to take care of data. And then people, laws, regulation, all of this is somehow addressed under the chapter of ethical challenges. These are some of the hints of our report. We have been working on this extensively for more than 8 months. The main results, as every year, are the 10 recommendations. And I want to share with you these 10 recommendations one by one, and then this will be what we are going to discuss later on in the panel. So let's start. Number one, I'm pretty sure you have seen 2001, The Space Odyssey, the movie from Kubrick. What is happening there? You see that there is a computer which is taking over the spaceships. This is still, unfortunately, the understanding that the public has about the future, about the artificial intelligence, about the automation, about the technology in general. They think that this will control our life in the future. And the reason is that they have ignorance about this. They think wrongly because they don't know what artificial intelligence is. For this reason, we need to invest a lot in educating our society. We need to share information. We need to share know-how on the role of artificial intelligence. We need to share what artificially intelligent is. If we are doing that, people will understand, and people will not have any more misconception about the importance, the role, and even the threat that artificial intelligence is. We need to take this discussion at any level, societal level, schools level, university level, and company level. And in this, governments and policymaker has a strong role in starting this discussion. Number two, managers. As any technological innovation, and we have seen this many times, there is a hype of expectation. Every manager thinks that when there is a new technology, this new technology will be able to solve everything. This is not true. This has never been true. We are exactly facing this problem now with artificial intelligence. It seems to be the problem solver by definition. This is not true. We need to understand what is the proper expectation we need to put on AI capabilities. We need to choose the right solutions. Anytime we have a problem that we think should be addressed and solved by artificial intelligence, we need to understand the proper technology to be used. We need to work on the data which are required to feed into the machine learning algorithms, into the neural network. We need to understand their limitation also. If managers are going to act in this way, there will be the right and the proper deployment of artificial intelligence in our company. Last but not the least, encourage sharing of best practices. We think the advisory board and the editorial board of the report thinks that this is the right way to spread the practices of innovation at global level. Third, ethics. I already mentioned it in the starting of my speech. Ethics is coming back. We need to understand the ethical implication of using artificial intelligence. This is not only addressing the society, this is also addressing the workers, this is addressing the managers. We are using sometimes data to train algorithms. If the data are not representing the society, if they are biased, for example, on genders or on classes, economical classes, social classes, the risk to discriminate other people is there. For this reason, we need to pay attention in this perspective. Creating interdisciplinary teams when we are using artificial intelligence is a way to mitigate this risk. 4, ensure data quality, privacy, and availability. Artificial intelligence does not exist without data. Data are the food for artificial intelligence. We need to create accuracy in the data. We need to be sure that they are complete anytime we are using this kind of approach, especially if this approach is used in society. For this reason, we need to promote responsible data collections and responsible data management and responsible data practices. This is the only way to guarantee that we are using the proper data, we are using the data in the proper way, and therefore artificial intelligence adoption is going into the right direction. Trusting the data is important. Sharing data is also very important, but this is a challenge, of course, because since data has value, people are not willing to share them for free. 5, people should be always at the center of our attention in our working environment. This is let me say, one of the most important pillars of the World Manufacturing Foundation. We are working in order to create a better society. This is our goal, this is our mission. We want this to happen also when artificial intelligence is used. We need to prepare our workers. And let me tell you this, workers, we are being growing by expecting that our boss come to us, ask us to do something and explain why we have to do something. So there is an interaction between people. What is going to happen? What is going to be our psychological reaction if in the future we need to take instruction from an artificial intelligence algorithm? What is going to happen if our boss is going to have an artificial intelligence? This is today happening, is the near future. We need to be psychologically prepared to accept this. For this reason, we need to empower humans in interacting with artificial intelligence. It's not only a matter of skills, it's a matter of acceptance of the artificial intelligence as a technology, as a let me say, as a teammate as well. Number 6. The problem we have been facing sometimes when we are using this technology in our company is the fact that sometimes we are not fully addressing artificial intelligence from the strategic perspective. Let me say something here. We need to start from the top managers. Once top managers decide the strategy, then this can go down to the technical level and to the operational level. Ensure that the voice of everyone in the organization is fully understood. This is very important. Otherwise, there could be a detach from the top manager down to the organization. The voice in AI change management strategy is therefore very important for the entire organization. So there has to be a full alignment from the top down to the shop floor when we are using artificial intelligence. Number 7, SMEs. You know that SMEs has been widely affected by the pandemic. And the reason is that SMEs, by definition, are not fully prepared to take or to face a disruption event. Is a reason of skills, is a reason of budget, money. We need to avoid that with this artificial intelligence evolution or deployment, SMEs will stay back from the large multinational company. The risk of increasing the digital divide of SMEs versus large multinational company is there. We need to avoid that this is going to happen. How to do that? We should support the adoption. Fiscal incentives, for example, can be important to help SMEs in the adoption of artificial intelligence. Number 8, we think that artificial intelligence can be useful apply in the shop floor. This is true, but can also be applied in supply chain and network. Supply chain are going to be redesigned after the pandemic. They are going to be more resilient. They are going to be shortened. Companies are getting closer to the market. The source is something that is of raw material is something that is going to be redesigned at global level. So the supply chain will be redesigned. We need to understand what is going to be the role of artificial intelligence in redesigning the supply chain, but also in operation with the supply chain, with the redesigned supply chain. I think that there is a great opportunity in this area. We have not fully understood what is going to be the role of AI in this perspective, but this is something that definitely we need to pay attention on and need to deserve more discussion about that. 9, we're almost at the end, is skills. We need to educate people. We need to educate people since their kindergarten, since the elementary school, the primary school. But we need to educate our workers and we need to train them. We can't forget that we have a huge experience in our people, in our companies. Skills are therefore very important. We need to prepare the workforce to work with the artificial intelligence, and this is important for them. It's not necessarily and only important for companies. Last but not the least is about standards, policy, and regulation. Innovation is going very fast. Policies most of the time are coming behind innovation, and they're coming later when we have understood the impact of this innovation. We need to work on this perspective. We need to avoid that some countries all over the world are taking too much advantage from the other if they have different regulation and different standards. That's one topic, for example. But the other topic is that we should not create regulation which are preventing the evolution of this technology. This technology will bring a lot of benefit in our companies, in our society. We need to avoid that establishing too strict regulation, the trustful development of AI system will not go into the right direction. These were the 10 key recommendations, and I'm looking forward to discuss them with my colleagues in the coming few minutes. But before getting to the end, let me also go to the conclusion, how the report is done. This is a methodology that we've been adopting since 2019. Of course, we are consulting many experts all over the world. There were more than 50 experts with more than 30 nationality. This is important to be understood because this report, the content is really representing the global perspective. It's not just the opinion of the World Manufacturing Foundation. We have also included our network of young manufacturing leaders. This is very important. Young people have a voice in this report because we are designing the future. We need to listen to them. Let me thank the advisory board. You see listed the colleagues who have helped us. A special thank to all of them. And let me say that an even special thank is going to the editorial board members. You see them here represented. Mark Kasidzi have been coordinating us. He is the person who was very important in this activity. Thank you very much, and of course I'm inviting you to read it because that will be uploaded today on our website, World Manufacturing Foundation website. Thank you so much, and
well,
I'm
thank you.
returning the word.
Thank you, Professor Marco Taisch. That was great. We as journalists, we do love decalogues. We do love recommendation because it are easier to discuss, and that's what we're going to do. First, with two of the members that you just mentioned, advisory board, editorial board, we do have David Romero, who's professor of advanced manufacturing at the Tecnológico Institute de Monterrey. Welcome. Welcome, David. And Thorsten Wuest, the assistant professor of smart manufacturing at the West Virginia University. Welcome both. Well, first of all, I'd like to ask you, yes, 10 recommendations, 10 decalogues, and then there's much more into the reports that will be uploaded on the website of the World Manufacturing Forum. First of all, David, and you've been joining the advisory board. What do you think are the most relevant among these recommendations that will make the difference also from a manufacturing standpoint?
I think that the recommendation that Marco highlighted about putting our workers, putting our managers at the center of the transformation is very important. I think we need to develop this storyline of me, myself, and AI in front of us and interact more with the technology, try to discover more use cases for it. Of course, some of them perhaps, could create disruption. But that's the important thing, right? To have this communication with our workforce, to interact with the technology, to test the technology in different use cases, and in a democratic way, try to find which could be those use cases that at the end will be creating value for our supply chains, for our organization, and the most important thing, for our workforce.
Oh, yes, and Thorsten Wuest, recommendation number 8 is to use artificial intelligence to create and strengthen resilient supply chains. I know that you work on that. What's going on in reality in terms of AI, or is it already used to create more resilient supply chains?
Very much. That's an excellent question, and I will have a hard time answering that with a one sentence, so I have to get a little broader. And I think the important thing to consider with these recommendations is that they have to be considered holistically together. Like one individual recommendation cannot put out of context. And I think the same stands true for recommendation 8 when we look at supply networks. Because within supply networks, we see some applications, but a big struggle is first that there's a bunch of different companies involved in supply networks, from large to small. And then the question of data exchange across companies, across countries, across the trade systems like the EU and the US and so on, which have different policies. And as long as those are not aligned, or the understanding is not aligned, and the grasp of what data is worth and how we can trade this new oil is not fully understood and developed, we have a hard time really developing value-added AI systems in supply network to achieve that resilience that we were talking about. And that is in the media with the Black Swan event of COVID right now.
Well, Professor Marco Taisch, we're receiving some questions, and I urge all the listeners to use the app and the functionality of Q&A to ask your question through the platform. First of all, there are questions about innovation, and innovating in the manufacturing AI industry still requires ongoing research and development, great investments, accessible only to big players. And the question is, how can SMEs access the same technology and improvements?
I think that there are two ways that we need to work on, two levers. The first one is about skills. The reason why SMEs are not adopting artificial intelligence as the large multinational companies are doing is because they have no idea, no clue of what is the impact that this kind of algorithm, this kind of approach can have on their own business. So they are not aware. We need to help them to create this awareness. And this is a part of the activity of the World Manufacturing Foundation, but it's also something that governments should do, academia should do, consultancy firms should do in order to make SMEs aware. Then there is the second part, which is investment. It's not necessarily true that solving some particular problems that SMEs are facing requires huge investment. It's mainly a matter of methodology sometimes. So it's not true, and let me repeat, it's not true that AI always requires a huge investment. This is something that is true when large multinational companies are deploying this at global level, because maybe they are using it for addressing very complex problems. But sometimes SMEs do not have this kind of complexity. So skills from one side, awareness from one side, and investment. Governments, especially this is going to happen in Europe with the next generation EU, are going to put a lot of money into these technologies. This will help European SMEs, but we are fully aware that US, for example, or China are putting a huge investment, huge money in this technology, and I think that this will help their SMEs as well.
Well, definitely, and we'll discuss all the ethical and social implication of all of this in the first panel in a few minutes. But I want to go back to David Romero and Thorsten Wuest, because, you know, artificial intelligence is the new playground also of competition. We know China has been pushing very hard to acquire all the skills and all the technology that is needed. And what do they have is a very large pool of data that is produced by a population which is already online mind more than any others. And the US, they do have these incredible platforms we all use to connect ourselves, to discuss, to buy and sell. So what do you make of AI in the competition in the manufacturing sectors? Do you think that this will let China overtake the other countries and other nations, or there's something different moving on? David first.
So for sure, the capacity of using data to develop digital capabilities such as diagnosing situations, predicting events, prescribing to actions for us so we can better react into this will be a source of competition. Therefore, I think, as Mark also was mentioning, the rest of the countries, our region, for example, Latin America, North America, needs to catch up because this is going to be the new basis of competition. So yes, the answer is that there is a challenge there for many countries, and there is the danger of staying behind in the new arena of competition that will be based on these new AI-related digital enabled capabilities for organizations and for societies in order to become smarter and act in a more proactive and preventive way rather than in a reactive way.
Right. Thorsten, Wuest, how do you see also Europe facing US and China?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that question?
Yeah, how do you see Europe and European companies facing Asia and China and the US?
Well, being based in the US but being familiar with Europe, I can comment on that, I believe. I think Europe is not in a bad place position-wise because they have a very strong base in high-tech manufacturing of machine tools, which basically provides the data to feed in the artificial intelligence systems. So that is, I think, a big opportunity and foundation for developing these systems. However, when we look at the US market, for example, the innovation is just incredible how companies are just, this incubation of new companies that just start up and take what is there and develop new solutions that solve these problems is great. And I believe will lead the US to catch up rather quickly when they manage to unify their manufacturing base. And the US, for example, has invested heavily in these Manufacturing USA institutes that try to address some of the issues that, for example, the resource constraint of small and medium-sized companies, or the 80% of investment that needs to go in the data pipeline, and they try to containerize that and make that easier for companies to do. China, on the other hand, as you mentioned, they have a very different approach of collecting data on the social side, different from Europe, different from the US. And of course, they have invested heavily in manufacturing. They bought a lot of high-tech companies in Europe, in the US, when we just think of KUKA Robotics or so, which are, leaders in the field. And these two pieces of the puzzle, when they come together, that will be a very strong competitive force. So it will be interesting in the future, but China, the US, and Europe all have opportunities, but have to be careful to not lose that.
Yeah, this is good news for all of us European. We'll have more on this with some United EU Commissioner just in a few minutes. But Marco Taisch, we've got a question from Sweden, and the question is, AI is mature when it's close to customer. From this standpoint, on our smartphone, we already have our assistants that are based on artificial intelligence, Google Maps, whatever. But the question is, I'm curious to know the progress on shop floor AI, how much has been achieved, and what recommendations are there to increase the adoption on the shop floor of AI?
It is true that the maturity of AI in the shop floor is not as high as it is in e-commerce, for example, or understanding marketing demand from the customer or other kind of application. The reason is that first, and we need to go back to the topic of SMEs, there are a lot of SMEs in the manufacturing field, and still they are lagging behind the adoption versus the large multinational company. But the second reason is that manufacturing, from some perspective, is a very peculiar. One plant is different from any other plant. There are particular behavior, particular model. And sometimes, especially if we are going to one-of-a-kind production or non-repetitive production, the data that we are collecting are different because they are applying to different products, to different lots. So the repetition and therefore the generation of a large quantity of data which can be used to train artificial intelligence algorithm is much lower than compared to other problems. This is a particular to manufacturing, so it's not the limit of the artificial intelligence algorithm, it's a limit of the problem itself. I think that we have to discuss about artificial intelligence potential in the shop floor, but we should not forget that AI is only one of the many technologies that we need to deploy in the shop floor. The future is made by IoT, is made by big data, is made by cloud computing, is made by virtual reality, and these are just some of the current and mature technology that we have to use together with artificial intelligence. So in the manufacturing environment is requiring more than just artificial intelligence, many other technology. There is a risk here, and the risk is that, you know, when all these technologies combined together are coming to one problem, to one company, they are creating a boost in the competitiveness of this company. It's not the time anymore to do as we used to do 20, 30 years ago, that we were focusing only on one particular technology. If we look at the innovation in the digital environment, we are facing something new. There is a new way of doing innovation. This is also a revolution in the revolution. For this reason, the world is even more complex from that perspective. And therefore, this is creating even more pressure on companies, especially on SMEs.
Yeah, well, Marco, to me, one of the most interesting recommendations is number 2, so managing the expectation towards AI. So it is true AI is a breakthrough technology and has been compared to the invention of electricity because it will power all the sectors of the economy. At the same time, in the past, we've already seen moments where the hype around artificial intelligence was so high that then people was frustrated when there was a lack of applications and maybe promises were not fit by what the reality was. So there's a question on this because there's one person from Italy says sometimes the use of AI to solve some problems is like using a battleship to go fishing when just good practices are enough. So David and Thorsten, how do you see this and how to avoid frustration from what AI cannot do? In the end, we were all very confident in AI power, then the virus outbroke and we felt naked in front of a virus. So technology was not there to help. But leaving aside this aspect, because you know, scientists I interviewed on this, they're saying there were no data enough to use AI to fight the virus. But looking at the future, how do you think that AI will change manufacturing? David.
Well, I think, as you mentioned it, the more we can train AI, the more also we build AI systems that are capable to explain us how they're working, how they're thinking. So it's not just the idea of developing AI, but it's the idea of developing an explainable AI. The better we're going to be able to develop these digital capabilities that will going to give us the capacity to act more preventive, I was mentioning. And rather than only thinking in an AI working separately from us, I think that the future of AI, once again, needs to be based on combining the unique capabilities that the AI can have, which is really good for optimizing and predicting stable events, standardized events that can be somehow forecasted out of data. But we know, and economists have always said this, right, that us as humans, we are not exactly rational human beings. We always have this unpredicted behavior. And I think also the human ingenuity and the let's say, the gods and the feeling of the human will be still relevant combined with the AI system.
Thorsten?
Yeah, two points I would like to make. First of all, I would like to respectfully disagree a little bit with the impact of AI in the mitigation of the crisis. You're right that the prediction of the crisis was not done as you would hope for, but I think that's the nature of a black swan event. They're inherently very, very hard to predict. Nevertheless, when we look at companies that steered through the crisis rather well, they used AI very heavily. When you look at Amazon in their warehouses, which Amazon kept basically most of us alive, at least with gadgets and packages, they used AI to control the workers on the shop floor to make sure that the distance is maintained and who's contacting whom with advanced AI-based vision systems. Other companies use predictive maintenance to reduce travel and steer around travel requirements. So AI had an impact there. The other point I would like to stress is with regard to expectation. It's very important to differentiate between the great analogy that Marco made earlier with HAL from Space Odyssey. I always use the Terminator as an analogy, as an AI that is like a human, takes over, can be evil, can be good. That is not what AI is right now. We're talking about specific AI in manufacturing, which in the end is machine learning, where we have a specific problem space, and an objective what we want to solve. And there, the expectations are rather clear and can be fulfilled rather well. And that, I think, is the challenge, to educate that it's not the Terminator that basically takes over the factory and does everything. It's like, we as the experts on the shop floor have to define, this is the problem we want to solve, this is the data input, this is the model, and that's what we expect, and then we have to interpret the results. And then AI can be extremely powerful and helpful.
Yeah, that's interesting. And, there's a large debate on technology and the application versus mitigating the virus and predicting and fighting it. But this is not the case. We do not have the space to go on with this, which is absolutely interesting. Marco, Taisch, I've got many questions. First, the area the audience is very sensible is any example of AI application for SMEs and with the trends, the main trends that you see? And secondly, there's a question from India. In developing countries, is it cost effective? And which immediate industries can adapt AI manufacturing? This is from Mumbai, India.
Wow. Okay, let's start from the first one. There are many examples of a success application of AI in SME. As Thorsten was saying, it's only a matter of creating the right problem, or let me say, addressing the right problem to be solved by AI. The success stories of this application in SME, some of them are in our report, so let's go and read them, please. But the backbone of them, the shared common reason for the success is that they were able to understand first the problem, cluster the problem, create a proper understanding of the problem, and then having a mix of competences between AI and the manufacturing competences. This is very important to be understood. We cannot detach the two areas, the know-how of AI application per se and the manufacturing application. They have to work together. As regarding India, I'm sorry I do not know well enough the market over there, but I think that whenever we are going to have innovation in terms of product and services, and India, for example, is working a lot of IT services remotely, these services are required by manufacturing company. So why not having new business models of service delivery to a manufacturing company? For example, predictive maintenance can be done remotely by analyzing the behavior of machines. I see this as a great opportunity. We have been discussing yesterday about new business models in the afternoon session of the World Manufacturing Forum. AI can be an enabler not just of solving and addressing current existing problem, but can also be an enabler of new businesses. Can help company to transform versus from just a manufacturing company towards a manufacturing and service company.
Well, we have to wrap it up and sum up the main messages of this opening session. We'll go deeper on the ethical and social implication in a minute. But let me get back to David and Thorsten Wuest with your takeaway. Given the 10 recommendations, who should listen to what, and how do you expect these recommendations to be used looking ahead? David.
Well, I think I will stress the need of understanding the process that you want to AI enable. Focus on the culture of AI by training your people and understanding what is the method that you need to follow to truly transform and boost your business processes through an AI. And of course, understand and go deeper in the capacities and the maturity that certain AI applications can have for you. So I think this is at least the vision that is for me. Understand your process, how they can benefit from AI or any other industry 4.0 technology. Trust in your people, train your people, let them know how technology can help them to re-engineer and transform their business processes to become more productive. And finally, make the proper selection of the technology, the proper adoption of the right AI that can work for you.
That's very useful. Thorsten Wuest?
Maybe just at the beginning, use all these recommendations together. It's a holistic system, like you cannot use one without the other. And then 3 points I think are really important. First of all, base the solutions that you want to develop on real problems and have the value add in mind. Short-term and long-term, both have to have a space there. Second, the solution or this method has to be owned by the operators, but also the management jointly. That makes it a learning experience. Even so this particular problem fails, the people will learn, right? And the next one will be better. And the last one is the most important one, I believe. AI is not a silver bullet. It will not solve all your problems. It can be a useful tool, but keep that in mind.
Thank you so much, Professor Marco Taisch. Lastly, who should listen more today? Government, European government, the European Commission, for example, international regulators, individual managers, entrepreneurs. Who's the decalogue for?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them, because this is exactly the exercise that we are doing in the World Manufacturing Foundation. We address our stakeholders. They are the policymaker, they are the company, and they are the society at large. So all of them, they have to read carefully our recommendation.
Professor Marco Taisch, thanks again to the scientific chairman of WMF and also to David Romero and Thorsten Wuest. Thank you.